I love throwing it back.
Good morning, Rachel. How are you?
I'm really, really well, and I'm so excited to be talking with you this morning, Nat.
Me too. Me too. I think this is the first time you and I have had like an in real life conversation.
Isn't it
But
great?
I know it's great, isn't it? But I feel like I know you anyway. I've been following you for about 18 months now, and I feel like I know you. I feel like I see you in lots of places, which I'm like, oh yeah, we're meant to be connected. Yeah. I see
I
her
that
all over. I see
I
her everywhere.
Yeah. That's what I love about the online space is that you can be like, oh, I feel like I've already had a relationship with you, but I've never actually spoken to you.
Yeah.
So good.
So, for those of you who know Rachel, obviously she needs no introduction, but for those of you who don't know Rachel, you might like to listen in for a moment. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to flick to you for you to introduce yourself because I love this. I just asked Rachel, I'm like, do you want me to introduce you, or is there a way that you would like me to? Oh, no, I'm happy to introduce myself and
Yeah.
take the floor.
Yes, I love that. Why don't we just we get in a space where we are happy to brag about ourselves. So that's why I'm like, I'll do it. I'm good.
I'm good. I've got this. Let me
So,
talk.
yeah, exactly. So I'm Rachelle Luv Raku and
Yes.
I own Business Realign with Raku and I am
Yeah.
a energetics coach and I love working with mums
Yeah.
and working with them to help them discover the magic, their unique magic that's within them
Mm,
and really bring that out and feel powerful in it because we all have such a unique blueprint. And
yeah.
I love helping people discover theirs. And especially during motherhood, I feel like there is a lot of pressures in the outside world and society norms where we walk away from ourselves for quite a period of time when they're little. So
Mm,
often we feel completely disconnected from who we are.
yeah.
And I love connecting women back to the power and fire that they have within. It's a really fun journey in my life. So
I
yeah,
love that.
yeah,
It is such a big space, isn't it? And particularly in the space of motherhood, I think as women, we really we do lose sight of ourselves.
yeah,
We
yeah,
absolutely do lose sight of ourselves, which is like completely part of the process of dropping into motherhood. But it's
yeah,
also like there's a point, isn't there, where it's almost like, okay, now you have to come home.
yeah. It
You
gets
know,
I think that's the thing that I get to meet women at that point where they're in total exhaustion and
yeah,
anxiety and feeling completely stuck in their life. And there's often values that have been placed on other things, and because of motherhood they've had to give it up. Like
yeah.
one of my biggest one of my biggest healings was actually recognizing that I resented my children just for being born. And as hard as that is to say openly and
Yeah.
be vulnerable in that, um recognizing that and being able to release it was huge healing for my relationship
Yes.
with myself. And
Yeah.
because I mean, obviously, I was not consciously aware that that existed, but I was also beating myself up because it did.
Because yeah, the
Yeah,
old double bind.
the
Like
old double mind.
I'm resentful. I don't know why. Hang on, shit. If I acknowledge this, what does this make me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's like it's a beautiful part. I think that's why I resonate with you so much, Nat. Is like
Yeah.
how we can like the messy humanness. Like there's this
Oh,
thing out there that spirituality is like all this serious and like you've got to do this and
no,
you've got to do that.
yeah.
Like hell no. Like the universe has
In
the
my
biggest.
crop top and my maxi skirt and my I'm like, oh my God, seriously, this is like, can I tell you, this was running around to just look like this morning was running around for half an hour of like shower, coffee, muesli, quickly put some makeup on
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
really good ring light,
Yeah.
and
Really, that's the ticket to all online. But a nice jacket,
yeah,
headband,
like
some ring light, you're good. You're good
throw a
to
lot of
go.
light on that face. We'll be good. It's good.
I love it. And in perfect timing, I'm not sure if you can hear, but one of my children is banging on the door, which is just how it works in this
Yeah.
in this world.
It
And it's the humanness, right? Because
is.
it's 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 how it is. And it's like I feel like there's this notion that you have to be in this like Zen place and be untouchable, and your children should not bother you, and it's like, no,
No, they
we're
bother
you
me, and
human, you're
I'm
going to
not
be triggered.
untouchable.
You're going to be triggered, and you're going to have all your stuff come up, and
Yeah.
it's okay, and it's beautiful, and we can find ways to release some of the energy and shame and some of that negative energy that allows you to feel good and have space enough to meet them.
Do you find, like, when women first come to you, what do you find is the biggest challenge of things that they have? Like, either is it letting go? I think probably integrating into themselves as like, this is actually, because I talk about it in terms of the bits of ourselves we see as palatable and the bits that we see as unpalatable. So we're like, got to hide that shit because no one can see it,
Yeah.
And I really think that I'm probably equal parts both, if I'm really honest,
Yeah.
But I have
That's
learned,
okay.
it's taken me 2 years to be like, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's human.
Yeah.
It's just that no one else wants to talk about it, and you're okay.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest things. No one wants to talk about it. But as soon as I say at a party, oh my God, like, my kids were nuts and blah, 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 like everybody's like, oh my God, you feel that too? Like, oh, okay. It's the fact is, if you're experiencing it, I 100% guarantee that 99% of the other mum population have felt that way about their child. Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And wanting to hide it and wanting to do things, that's okay too. Like, it's how do you meet yourself with a level of compassion that you would meet your children if they were having a full-blown nana, and you were in a space where you could hold it and not in your own nana,
and not be like,
yeah, and you still love them afterwards, right? Instead of being that, oh my God, now I'm going to punish you because you've raised your voice, and
you've done this thing. You're not like, now I'm going to abandon you and shame you.
I'm going to just yell at you more and more and more about how terrible you are as a person, and which is what generally happens in our heads when something like that happens
in our heads.
Yeah. I love to say, if you were absolutely perfect and you could meet your children and be just like so open and like constantly allow them to express and like have all this space, if you were that, like, we are going to stuff our children up no matter what. If you were absolutely perfect and they had that experience, when they walk out into the big real world, they are not going to be able to cope.
What the hell, Mum?
Yeah. Why weren't you angry at me? Because everybody else is.
Why didn't you? Everyone else is like really agitated out here. I had this thought about, I don't know, probably 8 months ago, where I was looking at my son, and he's 8 turning 9. There's this real vulnerability that comes forward at that age. I only have a boy, so I only can speak from the experience of a son,
Yeah.
And I really it just like totally got me in all the feels, and I thought, this is so shit at this point, because they love you so much.
Yep.
But I'm like, ultimately, I'm the one who's breaking his heart first, because Mum, I love you so much, but I'm the one who's like, there's some tough lessons we're learning here, dude. And I am going to have to be the one who like does have to enforce some of those,
Yeah.
And you're like hating me right now, not understanding why, So I'm thinking, salute to all the mamas out there, because, you generally are the first one who really is like, your kids get their sense of feeling and love from you.
Yep.
And that's like, I was like, holy shit, that's a big responsibility. Okay.
breathe.
Don't worry about feeding, housing, clothing. I've got all that. It's this thing about, wow, like, you can, don't put your hand on the stove. Don't do that. Don't hit people. Don't,
Yeah.
But the bit where you're like, oh man, I'm actually shaping how he loves in the world, is like, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to need a moment here. Yeah.
And the fact that you're even thinking about that shows that you're already doing a phenomenal job. So I just want to put that out there on the
Oh,
table.
thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah.
And as mothers, we're not very good at taking that one either.
No.
Someone said to me, your son is a credit to you the other day. And I'm like, damn straight, I know. But do you think I could acknowledge it out loud? I'm like, thank you.
Well done for opening up to that. Like it's a process. And I think that's the big thing that that I love to teach in working with women is like it's a process. You know, we've been handed this thing for a very long time, and especially in motherhood, but you know, even from growing up, receiving compliments or boasting about ourselves is not something we were literally told not to do it. And the amount of people who like literally bat away a compliment when you're like, I can bat it away when you compliment them.
When you say to someone, like if I said to you, oh, Rachel, I love your headband, most women would say, oh, this thing, I picked it up online for $3. Okay. I didn't ask you where you got it. And I didn't say, can you tell me who made it so that I can give them a compliment on how nice it is?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm complimenting on you for choosing it and how lovely it looks on you.
Yes. And I think that's the biggest part is we get to open and receive, but it's not something that we're used to. So it's not necessarily going to be something that you can do straight away. It's something that takes time. It takes practice.
Yeah.
And so even though it was really uncomfortable, you know, you've got a thank you out there. You've built the system that is allowed to receive that much joy into your life.
Yeah.
Because one of the big things I see, and when you asked the question before, what's the biggest thing that you see coming in?
Yeah.
And it's guilt. It's guilt about being anything, right? So a lot of the women that I work with.
I mean, that's just so great, isn't it? Live your life in guilt about being anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It literally is. It's like, and I know like my own personal journey with it is that if I was here working, then I feel guilty because I'm not 100% present with my children at the time.
Yeah.
And then when I'm with my children and I'm thinking about work, then I'm guilty because I'm not doing the work that I want to do that's, you know, for my children and for my family. It was like, no matter what I do, I'm in this space of guilt.
You're like, okay, this is not working for me.
Yeah. And so I'm like, so I love, because guilt for me is the ultimate reminder that I'm cock blocking my joys somewhere. It's like, okay, what love aren't I allowing in right now? Why am I choosing to block that? And if I, can you hear the like extreme banging in my room? This is what I love.
They're really
easy.
They're really trying to get in. They're really trying to get in. We need you, Mum.
We need you, Mum.
We need you, Mum.
Yeah.
It's all right. My son's just been over here at the door thing. I'm just getting ready. Yes. Okay. Go. Can I get the shirt off the door? Yes.
Mine know that now is the time to ask for like snacks or things that I wouldn't normally say yes to, because I'll be like, yes, and shoo them out the door. But they're smart, right?
Oh, yeah. I was like journeying with that one the other night. I'm like watching my son after dinner, a dinner he didn't really like. And so I love this because he'll sit down and he looks at it and he goes, I'm probably not that hungry, but I'll eat as much as I can. I'm like, I've heard this routine before. Here we go. You know. And so the moment I get distracted by something, like I'm setting up someone, so I'm messaging, right? He's nearly finished his dinner. I'm finished. I'm sitting there with him. And I just see him get up and walk away from the table. And I'm like, hey, where are you going? You know, I just thought it would be okay. I'm like, oh, you thought I wasn't paying attention and you thought it would not that it would be okay, that it wouldn't be noticed. Guess what? I noticed. Sit down and finish your dinner.
I love it. And I love that it's like they just know how to work the system. They're very smart, amazing humans. And we've raised them well.
Look, it's like there's just so many nuances in it, isn't it? You're like, we've all seen the meme where we're like, I want my kid to be really independent, but just not with me, you know.
I always loved my eldest daughter. My mom used to laugh and be like, I always wanted you to get a version of yourself. I just didn't realize how much I'd be looking after her. Like, I secretly hoped you would get you all along.
Thanks
And
for
you have.
Thanks for Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for Yes, there we go. Can I use this for my lunch? Yes. Thanks for manifesting that, Mum, and also jokes on you.
Yeah, exactly. I said, be careful what you wish for.
It's
Yeah,
different, but for them, isn't it? You know, it's different when you're not so attached to the outcome.
yeah,
Grandparents have like this beautiful, I'm often envious. I'm like, look at your beautiful, easy relationship. Oh,
and they get to say yes so often. I think that's a beautiful part of grandparentship.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the biggest thing for me with guilt is like, if we recognize that guilt is a place where we are blocking the joy coming through, and stop and have a look, it does shift things if you look for what's actually beautiful in the moment that I'm missing.
Yeah, okay.
So for me, we've just been
That's a
locked
great
down
tip.
we've just been
Yes.
locked down in Sydney for
Yes.
17 weeks
100 years.
homeschooling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100 years
And
later,
not
still
like
there.
Victoria. I love you, Victoria. Good
Yes.
luck. And it's so when I was in here and I'm feeling guilty because like we're literally in the same house and I've just separated myself and they're out there homeschooling by themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm like feeling guilty about it, but I'm like, okay, so what are the positives? What's the love here that I'm not missing? And the fact is my children are amazingly resilient. My children don't generally knock on the door like that.
Yeah.
But they help each other out. And if I was out there, they would just be coming to me to do all of that. And it's actually,
it would stop that flow for them too.
Yeah.
This is what I liked. This is what I like to tell myself. He's building some valuable skills right now.
Yeah.
You know?
100%. And it's actually like, it's truth though. If I was out there.
Particularly for boys, like I watch the nuances between, even now when we say we're so gender aware, right? And we're so about, we're rejecting the boys will be boys thing, but I watch the nuances between the way that little girls and little boys are treated. And I do feel for my son, because sometimes I'm like, yep, you're out in the deep blue ocean on your own, buddy. Learn to swim.
Yep.
There ain't going to be anyone here to like save you, my friend,
Yeah.
But I do really feel like, he's abysmally untidy, which triggers the bejesus out of me. And I'm like, what is that? Oh, that's my mother's voice. Okay, we've got some work to do there. That's my mother's voice in my head,
Yeah.
But I do say to him, I'm like, there's just some stuff, man, that you just have to learn.
Yep.
It's called survival skills. I know it seems a bit Bear Grylls-ish for you right now, but like
What a sense of adventure.
Yeah, come on. And trust me, his room sometimes looks like it's a set of a Bear Grylls, like we're going to do some filming in the jungle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And it's funny, in our house, it's very much around energy. So so for mine, like my youngest has ADHD. If her room's messy, she's like makes them crazy. It's like really important for her to have that clean. But then also her brain works like, if I want the shirt, I'm going to pull out every single item of clothing that I have until I find the shirt. So it's like this constant battle of
okay, I understand this, but what is this? Yeah.
But it's like, and then each child has such an individual thing. Like I've got another child who's she's gorgeous, and everything has to be exceptionally like folded to within an inch of its life and ordered completely.
She can come live with me anytime she likes. We'll get along just fine. No, I'm not that pronounced with my tidiness, but yes.
But then it's an issue because those two have to interact. So it's like then you have all the energetics of the sisters coming from completely different things and hating each other's style. So.
It must be so beautiful, but watching those relationships at play.
Yeah, absolutely.
And knowing that gets to be part of your journey.
Yeah.
And also knowing that they get to see a mother who's very real.
Yep.
And what an imprint that leaves on them particularly for girls.
Yeah. And for the boys just as much, I think, especially with allowing them to experience the energy, like for me, emotions are energy.
Yes.
Um, and I don't like to label the children's emotions, because if you get it wrong, then they just don't listen to me for the rest of the whatever we're talking about. But I'll be like, oh, I can see you having a lot of energy there. Like
Yes.
you are processing some big stuff right now.
Tough.
Do you need
Yeah.
help with it?
Yeah.
Is totally different than going, hey, what's wrong with you? And
Yeah.
sometimes I don't. Sometimes I say, what's wrong with
Yeah.
you? Because I'm in a headspace myself where I can't really hold it.
Yes. No.
And I'm okay with that. Like, I can't be perfect all the time. I get to be human.
I
It's
know.
okay.
But and like if we listen to them, they'll pull us up on that, right? Because
Yep.
I will say, "Are you okay?" And my son looks at me like, "What planet are you from?"
Can't you see me right now?
Do I look okay to you, lady?
I'm not okay.
And I think to myself, also not the best language to use in asking that question, Natalie. Okay, let's go again.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think, I mean, that's the beautiful thing. Like, it's funny how as moms we try and be more than human, and then we're raising humans, right? So they're going to grow up
Right.
and they're going to get angry at somebody, and they're going to yell at them, and they're
Yeah.
like, hey, what did mum do in this situation? Oh, she took a few moments, calmed down, and she came back, she apologized, and we worked through a different
Yeah.
solution. It's like, oh wow, that's a great strategy
Yeah.
for your children to learn by mimicking how you do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like, I think that's the thing that hit me really early on. I'm like, oh, okay, this is real. Because that was the other thing I was going to say earlier. When we have kids, we're like, all of our unresolved stuff, like the first moment that our child encounters something different, if we live under this rock where we think that that's not going to come up and be difficult for us to process, it's like,
Yeah.
I you see certain journeys, and I think I wonder how much of this actually is the from the parents' perspective, not giving themselves permission to actually allow what's there for them,
Yep.
being triggered for them in the situation to come through and be acknowledged,
Yep.
and how much of it actually is what's happening with the child.
Yeah. I often think that the children are just messages for ourselves. Like, yes, they have their own journey.
Absolutely.
They have their
Yes.
own journey, but they are like giant balls of love, and they will highlight
Yeah.
all the areas that you have yet to
Yes.
love yourself.
Yes.
Very well, unfortunately, in cute form.
Yes. But that is it, right? It's like, it's really hard to see kids go through something that's hurting them
Yeah.
or that they're struggling to navigate,
Yeah.
But even in those moments, I'm like, okay, which part of me is really being touched by this, and what's there for me? I
Yeah.
can be compassionate and I can love him. That's pretty much all I can do, you
Yep.
know.
Yep.
Because contrary to popular belief, our children don't want us to intervene on their behalf so much. Like if something really significant happens, and I'm like, I will say to him, I'm just letting you know, I'm probably going to have to let the school know.
Yep.
Please, mum, don't. And I'm like, I need you to understand there are some things which we work out together, and there are
Yep.
some things which we have to extend the circle for. And this is
Yeah.
one of the,
And just think about that now on a like grown up level, right? So he's 23, and his partner leaves him, and he's feeling like really heartbroken, and
Yeah.
he's gone, hey, hold on, when these big things happen in my life, I get to extend the circle to get more support.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
I should go see a counselor, maybe I should
I
set up
should. Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
because you put that in place from a very
Mm.
young age. um and it's hard to navigate, because you want to fix it for our little people, but it is also about allowing them to find the skills that they can use later on.
Yeah, which like anything which are particular to them. We as adults, we were talking about that before, we're still trying to find our way of doing things,
Yeah.
but then we think we're gonna, overlay this way of doing things, and that'll be the way that it'll resolve things for, which just, I think we forget. Yeah, I remember when I had Ryan, I was like late having, as in older having him. So I was 41. I think I was 41 when I had him. 41 turning 42 that year, I think. And But my close circle of friends, like my two closest friends that had kids really young, so their kids were adults, right?
Yeah.
And my extended circle of girlfriends, none of them had kids. They were all career.
Yeah.
And one of my, career girlfriends, she's like, look, I don't mean to sound terrible. It's just that we don't do babies, And I'm like, oh my God. I looked at her and I said, surprisingly, because you were one once, and a child and a teenager, and
Yeah.
now you're an adult.
Yep.
That just, I'm like looking at it like, wow, am I actually having to explain this? I am. Okay. Because they're a smaller version of a human, right?
They're just compact humans. And we have a lot of needs.
Am I really having to explain? I am having to explain this right now. Okay. Yep. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's beautiful in that everybody has such a different and unique journey. And then you don't know why that person's having to reject that or say that, because part of their journey might have been that they wanted, you just don't know the story
Yeah.
behind them. And so for them, they're like, okay, I'm not even going to go look at babies because that reminds me
Something
of
happens here for
something.
me. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, I mean, 8 years ago, I'd done a landmark course and probably watched some Oprah, probably had like some exposure to Dr. Phil. That was about it for me, that would have been my extent of,
Personal development world
yeah.
extent.
Yeah.
There's nothing like children to get you like into the personal development world, and that because there is that idea of what you want parenting to look like and
Oh,
how it
yeah.
should feel.
Yeah.
And then we're also handed this set of conditioning that is totally against us feeling that way. Like, that we have to give everything of ourselves and like do it all alone because
Yeah.
that proves that
No
we're a really
help.
good
That
mom,
proves you're a
and
valid woman.
yeah, and don't have any of the feelings that are very real that everybody
No,
has
none of
because
them.
nobody talks about them.
No.
And so then there's a whole big level of shame and guilt that happens, and they're really low vibe emotions. Like literally,
Yeah.
if you measure the emotion, it's a really slow vibrational emotion, and it
Emotion.
stores in our body because we don't talk about it.
Yes.
Like we're in and out beings, and we get to
We
release
are.
the energy that's there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And and look, I believe it's really important to acknowledge our emotions as they come up, right?
Yeah.
But I also think it's important to have like an emotional hygiene practice, right? So because for me too, I'm like, wow, where did that come from? Sometimes I'm not aware of what's building behind me,
Yep.
So I will it's been once a week lately, do a little bit of a rage release. I will sing, I will put something and really belt it out, like just open up that throat chakra,
Yeah.
I will take a moment to do something that is pleasurable,
Yeah. Yep.
I will move my body, like those things. And I'm not saying go for a run or a 60-minute walk or whatever, but even if it's just dancing, just get some,
Absolutely. And I think one of the things I love the most about all of the examples you gave was like singing and dancing is actually it's also you expressing who you are.
Yes.
Like it's unavoidable to express who you are when you're in the singing or you're dancing. Like it's showing part of who you are, right? And that's one of the things that we miss so much in parenting. It's like, oh, I've got to be all these other things that I'm told that I need to be.
Yes.
And so
and your body has this natural way of finding the right. And I mean, I just trust this implicitly, right? I'm like, I know my body knows what it needs. I just trust it. And so I've noticed even when I'm singing now, because I love to belt it out, just quite won a few karaoke competitions in my day,
Yes.
But I noticed when I hit a certain octave, which I really would love to, I must look into this. When I hit a certain octave, I get really emotional. And I'm like, what's there something else opening up there?
Yeah.
That is like really releasing, like it's really, and that's like, I mean, and I don't question these things now. I'm like, there's something that needs to be moved. Let's just let it move,
Yep.
Don't let the brain get in front of trying to figure out what it is. Let's just let the feeling be, move it through.
I love that because so often in the women I work with, we've become so in our head about everything. And it's about getting them back in touch with their body and their intuition and their unique way,
Yeah.
and trusting that, because we look outside of ourselves so often, especially in that
Yeah.
process, because we don't see it. Like
No.
it's not like cave people days where all the women would gather around and help, and we kind of
Yeah.
we see what happens. We're
Yeah.
in the clan together. We're very separated now, and we don't want to talk about things,
No.
because there's that level of shame, and then we store that shame as well. So
Yes.
it's this big
Yeah. Or then we
com-
seek something completely outside of ourselves to dull the connection to the feeling.
yeah. And because you're like, I'm not feeling well, I better go. Oh, that person tells me that that's the right thing. I'm
Yeah.
going to go do that and try
Yeah.
it out. And it's exactly the same as what you were talking about with your business post the other day, where
Yeah.
it's like, I'm going out and I'm going to try all these different strategies. I'm going to learn this from this person, this from this person. It's exactly the same in parenting.
Yeah.
And then you like find out that you're even more lost because we haven't actually gone, hey, what's happening for me? Like, what
Yeah.
makes me feel good?
What do I actually need right now?
Yeah. Um, I remember being asked by a counselor I was seeing at the time, like,
Hmm.
asked what my values were. And I literally had to go home and Google what a value was
I'm
before I
laughing
could
because
answer the
I had
question.
this big conversation with one of my best friends last night, and we were talking about like some stuff, and I was saying, with some work that I'm doing, I'm like, you would be surprised when you ask women, well, because we're talking about relationships, and I'm like, it's really easy to put one lens over a relationship. It just doesn't work. Like your values might be this, your partner's values might be that. And your friends who you're sharing the stories of your romantic or intimate issues with, their values could be completely different. So
Yeah.
when you're saying, I love this thing my partner does, and your acts of service, or that really resonates for you, but your friend is like gifts,
Yeah.
and that shitty cup of tea that your
Yeah.
partner like is like,
Means nothing.
what the fuck, get rid of him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and she's like, oh, that's very true. And I said, I asked in one of the groups I'm facilitating at the moment, I said, like, do you know what you want? And blank. And then I said, do you know what are your highest values? And so I can remember being that too, like you.
Yeah.
What do you mean
Yeah.
values? What are values? Can someone
To Google what that was.
typing in the chat to a friend of mine in the group, what are values? What are we talking about right
Tell
now?
me, what is this?
What
What
is
is this
this?
thing? What? I have my own values. It's not
What
my
do you
family.
mean? Yeah, no. I get to decide what my medicine is.
Yep.
What do I need in my world? Do I get to decide what that looks like? Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It's amazing, the journey. I love being able to connect women back to that part of themselves where they can feel more at home again, because it's such a big thing that happens during
Can I just
during motherhood.
I'm just going to take a moment here just for 1 second, if that's okay.
Yeah,
I
go
just
for
have
it.
my colleague here needs an
Some
answer. What?
assistance.
Okay, it's only 25 past 7, and I'm going to be off soon. I'll help you finish your lunch.
I finished my lunch.
Okay.
So there's nothing ready.
Okay.
It's the best. I love it.
We've been working on lists, like things we need to do to get
Yep.
ourselves ready.
Yep.
Mainly because he's like got this, when you love something and you want to do it all the time.
Yeah, the iPad. Yeah.
He loves gaming. He loves gaming.
Yeah.
Which I get. I totally get it. I'm like fully embracing it. Whatever it is, I've got to learn more about it to understand it.
Yep.
Instead of rejecting it, it's something he loves, and I will honor what he loves, right?
Yep.
But I'm like, also, dude, there's other things we need to do in life before we immerse ourselves into the gaming world. Yes.
Yep. Yep.
So that was what that was. I've done all these things. I've packed my lunch. I've done this,
It's a great motivator.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Give me something you love. Share with me what you love.
I always remember my three opposite, but I always remember my 3-year-old coming in and going, Mum, you're so fat. And I go, oh, really? I actually love my body exactly the way it is.
Thank you, darling.
And she's like, well, what else don't you like? And I was like, wow, you've really got this thing down pat at 3. Like,
Oh.
give me more ammunition I can throw back at you. I can't believe you've really got that concept nailed. Like, and I'm not giving you anything. Sorry.
That is amazing.
I was really impressed. I was trying not
Where
to
is
laugh.
your
It's very
Achilles heel, Mum?
Yeah, exactly. What else don't you like about yourself? So I can get
Share
you
with
there.
me how are you feeling today, Mum? Little bit vulnerable.
What's
Anything you
happened
want
in
to
your
share
youth
with
that
me?
maybe you still haven't worked through? Can you let me know about that story? I want to bring that up all the time. So good.
That is amazing. I love her.
Yeah,
Girl, boy, girl. Girl's
girl.
definitely girl, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. She's onto it.
She's onto it. She's gorgeous. She's
So
very smart.
we were talking about before rejecting part or not acknowledging parts of ourselves before we got on. You were talking about how you are really embracing the part of yourself which is very much works in the energetic space.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
What do you like? I'm going to use the buzzword of the conscious spirituality business community. What modalities are you working in right now?
I think this is the biggest thing. And it's been interesting, my journey into this. And I realized it's only recently that I realized why I had so much hesitation still sitting in. It was because all of the other things that I've done in my life, I've studied for 6 years or 4 years, and I know my craft inside and out. It's the same coaching. I know it. Like I know what I'm doing when I'm in that situation. And when it comes to like I do psychic readings online, I do readings for people. When it comes to that and opening up to that part of myself, first of all, it was really rejected by my family when I was young. So there's that whole trigger we were just talking about.
What
and
do you
society.
do? Something you guys don't support. Great.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
even
good.
now.
Yeah.
Even now, when I was like,
Christmas lunch is going to be amazing this year.
But it's funny now because I have people who are like, no, or they just won't even watch, or it's like this fun. Oh, it looks like a fun phase that she's going through. Hopefully that'll finish soon.
I think my family thought that about my online and my coaching. I'm like, nah, it just gets more amplified. Kids, hang on.
Yeah, stay tuned.
Anything else you didn't want to know, I'm going to share with you.
I messaged my brothers and sisters about 6 months ago and was like, I'm just letting you know it's going to get real weird. Like from here on out, it's going to get real. They were like, aren't you already real weird? Like, I love when every time I've like come on and I've been like, hey, this is the part of me. They're like, yeah, we know. Like, do you not know?
Oh, have you? You're late to the party. Welcome.
Which is hilarious because often in I have a group called Awakening the Woo, and we're working with them.
Which I love. I love that name, by the way.
Yes, it's so good. It came to me.
I love that.
And when I was working with them and I was doing something, and all of a sudden the first call, like I'm talking to them and I'm going, okay, we'll do this. And then I was like, all of a sudden realized that they didn't realize that they were at the level that I can see that they're at, like that they're really tapped in. They're very psychic. Like their gifts are so obvious, but I didn't realize that they didn't know it. So it was like, actually, I've got to revise my core structure to get a little bit of self-trust and self-exploration in there before we get to that stuff. So it was really cool because that's part of what it is, and it's a very interesting space to be in because there is no, like, logically you can't explain it. And I come from a very science background where there's a lot now. There's a lot of research that backs it up.
Absolutely. Now I just say to people when they don't understand, I'm like, there's a guy called Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's really palatable. He talks about quantum physics in the field.
Yep.
Go and explore that for a moment and then we'll talk.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing is it's all about bringing that unique medicine out, and we'll talk about that on the journey. And for me, not doing it, so for me, like ignoring that all of this stuff was coming through, led me to a place where I was really cranky and like rage monster whenever anything happened, and I was really, if my children wanted my attention, I was like, or energy, I was
Yes.
like very resentful of them because I didn't
Yeah.
have any of it. And coming back to myself and opening up those gifts and just playing, like so much just playing in that, has allowed me to come to a space where everything flows so much easier.
Yeah.
And yeah. And like there's a moment, especially if you're having, and right now so many people are opening up, like there's so much stuff coming through and it's scary at the beginning.
Yeah.
You think you're going crazy. Especially if you think you're seeing things or you're getting messages. Like there's a big part of, we were talking before about like how, the one filter can be, if your friend has that filter
Yeah.
of her being active love or whatever, but if your filter is like I'm afraid of that because you've
Yeah.
been taught to be afraid of it when you're a child,
Yes.
that when the
Yeah.
energy is coming in, it's going to be scary. And it's like teaching people tools where they can feel really at home in themselves and know that they're safe.
Yeah.
And
I
trust
think
themselves.
that's it, isn't it? It's like, I think at the bottom of everything, when we're inviting something new in or changing something, it's like being able to just at least give, even if it's only illusionary. And I say that, I don't know if that's the right word I want to use, but even if it's only a very finite amount, it's just enough safety for someone to take the step, right?
Yep.
There's a kids movie, and God, I use this a bit, and I'm going to have to Google this movie now. Ryan and I watched it ages ago. There's these two kids, brothers, they go on this big adventure. They're living in like a time where there's kind of like unicorns, but it's in the future, right? So you can have a unicorn, but the brothers obsessed with medieval times.
Yeah.
And they've got to do something because they can bring their dad back who died years before for this moment in time and see their dad, right?
Yeah.
And there's this part of this movie where there's this massive ravine, and the only way they can, and one brother has the gifts, right? These gifts, these psychic sort of manifestation, like esoteric, energetic gifts, right?
Yeah.
And it's a Disney movie. I thought it was great. It had so many great messages in there. I'm pretty sure Disney wasn't aware of them, but anyway, but they've got to get across this ravine, right?
Yeah.
And the brother with the gifts isn't convinced that he has the gifts, doesn't trust them.
Yeah.
And the brother that really wants the gifts, who's like the medieval buff and all the rest of it, he's like giving him the talk.
Yeah.
All we have to do is believe that you can do it. All we have to do is put one foot out.
Yep.
And see that this invisible bridge is there, and that we're going to cross on this invisible bridge, which you're creating. This is how we're going to do it,
Yep.
And I just loved it. I'm like, there you go. Like, just put one foot out. Just trust yourself enough to put one foot out. I'm like, so many metaphors in that.
So many.
Now I'm going to have to Google this movie.
I really would love to, because I feel like we get to add that to the list of movies for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's great.
It is great.
And I thought it was a great message too, to show kids, here's something that's outside of any experience that you will be shown.
Yeah.
But can also be very real.
Very real. I mean, my full belief is that we create our reality with our thoughts and our feelings and our values, all of those things. So it's all changeable. It's all changeable. And we get ourselves in the way. Like,
yes,
that's everything that we create, we're fighting for, everything in our reality. So it's all changeable and it's all shiftable. And I think that's the beauty of the work that I do, is seeing that in motion. Like if we go back on a timeline with somebody and shift something that's happened for them in their childhood, and see the reality and what shifts for them, and them going, oh my God, that was everywhere. That lens I put up of like, of I'm not good enough is like the classic lens that's there for everybody. Or the moment where they've rejected themselves and took another person's opinion and worried about what everybody else thought over themselves from there on. It's really powerful work, and it makes me, I'm just so lucky to be able to do it, because it's given me such an expanded awareness in my life, and how in control we actually are. And if we're not feeling that, beating ourselves up about it is not the way to move forward. It's like going, hey, I'm a bomb mom and I do amazing things, and I obviously just don't have this skill set to get past this hurdle that I'm feeling at the moment. Yeah.
And to just we're so good at giving compassion to everyone else. And we try and teach our kids how to receive things, how to really let things land and experience them.
Yep.
And I suppose my biggest thing with that is it's like you're but a mirror for them. So you can be saying this thing, right? And that's what it will seem like. If your energy is I am shut off, and kids feel that shit, man.
Yeah.
So they know you don't have to speak those words to them,
Yeah.
But if you're trying to, guide your kids and you're saying one thing and your energetic imprint is different,
Yep.
heads up, they're going to take the energetic imprint.
Yeah. They learn to read that before anything else. They don't know language. They don't know anything other than the energy in the room. And you have no idea. Like, I take people back and they go into the womb and they're hearing like conversations that their parents had in the womb. And it was that made them go, okay, I'm going to come out. I'm going to make sure that I'm small and I'm always right. And I'm a good girl, so that because they don't want me. So I want to be really, really good. Where it wasn't even it was a conversation around that the parents had, but it wasn't like there was full love, but they've heard it in utero. Like, it's amazing what happens. Yeah.
It's such a I talk about this with the women in my body acceptance stuff, and I'm like, women who are like, what happens when people say things to you? And I'm like, well, this is going to be hard to hear, but let's just go here.
Yeah.
When someone says something to you that is hurtful or judgmental about your body, it only hits and stings if that still exists within you.
Yeah. Yep.
And if your energy, I was describing this the other night, and I was saying, I don't get a lot of, even for the amount of, like, I share a lot of stuff, and even for the amount of stuff I share, I rarely get hate or kickback,
Yep.
And I was, really pondering this the other night, and I'm like, it's just because energetically I'm just not a space for it. I'm just not a space for it. I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm happy to have an uncomfortable conversation with someone,
Yeah.
because generally we go into this with such big perceptions about what the other person is trying to achieve anyway.
Yep.
That when we have the uncomfortable conversation, it's like, well, I don't know, that was nowhere near what I was meaning,
Yeah.
Hang on, what triggers of mine have I brought in here,
Yeah.
But I'm like, but energetically, I'm like, I'm just not a space for it. I'm a space for sharing and love and compassion and seeing things that are possible for us,
Yeah. And it's beautiful that that's what you receive back, because that's what the stand you are in the world.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, that's who you are, and that's the beliefs that you held, and so that's what you see in your reality, because they're your lenses.
Absolutely.
I always feel like my work is just like getting the lens and like clearing it off. Like, it's like, oh,
like when you're at the optometrist and they go, try this one, try this one, try that. You're on the machine. Try that. Is this one better?
Clearly now how amazing you are. Good.
Better, worse. Yeah.
You're amazing.
Put this like your shit hot lens on. Look, there you go. Better, worse? No? Yeah. Okay.
How do you feel about that lens? Why don't you wear that lens around for a while? It's going to be bright and it's going to be confronting for just a little bit. But after that, the world is going to look 10 times better.
A much richer experience here.
Yeah. Yep.
So what else do you want to share with people today?
I just want to really inspire people to we're designed very much to have an amazing and joyous life, and our souls are designed to take us there. And our human experience and our brain and the way that we think is beautiful, and it's also what gets in the way. And so what I'd love to share is, if you're feeling really stuck and you're feeling really stagnant and you're feeling like not you, then find somebody who resonates. Doesn't have to be me, but if you want to follow me, I'd love to experience your energy in my field.
Well,
Yeah.
you should, by the way.
But find somebody that you resonate with,
Mm.
who is living a life that you feel resonates with you, and just see what they're doing that's different, and make a shift. You don't have to continue feeling that way, and it's a choice. It's all a choice, and it gets to be done with love of yourself, because everything's perfect. Everything happens exactly as it is. God does not make mistakes, and you get to go easy on yourself. And if you are having some amazing, crazy, awesome spiritual things coming out for you in your life at the moment, then please get in touch with me, especially if it's a bit scary, because it is a time where so many people are awakening, and you get to find out how powerful you are and how safe everything is. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's also too, like, we can shape that experience, right?
100%.
We can shape that experience through, it's everything's an invitation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything in your life is there by invitation. And if there's something that you don't like, then withdraw the invitation.
Just tell it to go away. Yeah. That's one of the biggest things I teach is, like, if it's coming through and you don't like it, tell it to F off. Like, you don't have to have it around. You can say, no, not ready.
Not ready.
It won't be the message.
Yeah.
You are in control. You are so in control.
I was sharing with you before we jumped on how, like, sleep is dreams are one of the ways in which, things happen beyond the veil for me. And I'm like, the last few nights, I'm really struggling to grasp this thing that's happening with me and in my business, right? Showing up in my business. So I'm like, where is this within me? Okay. So I could use some help. Can you guys please show me what is here? Night one, I get shown relationships, as in intimate relationships. I'm like, okay, still too big a bridge for me to draw a conclusion from here. Right. I don't understand that. We're not talking about that. And I get everything touches it. This is the conversations I'm having in my head with my highest, my channel to my higher self. That's too big a bridge for me to have that. I want to be really specific. This is what I'm looking for.
And that's the biggest thing, right? You could just say, I need a different way. You just show me a different way.
So I wake up at about, I think it was 4:16, and I'm like, yes. And because, I'm half asleep still in that, that state. I'm like, I should write this down. And then, of course, I've gone back to sleep. And I've woken up this morning and I'm like, just lying there doing my little check-in, little gratitude, grateful to be, And I'm like, also, what came through last night? And I'm like, motherfucker.
God.
I can't remember. So I'm like, also not meant to know right now. Also, that gets to be perfect, perfectly frustrating, but also perfect.
Yeah. And it's exciting. I'm excited to hear when that finally drops. That's going to be huge. You're going to be like, Rachelle,
guess what?
I got the thing. Please tell me when it drops.
Now I would love to know, like, what, for people who have really resonated with you today, like, what are you doing at the moment? How can they be more in your space? What have you got happening?
Yeah, at the moment I have an amazing group that's starting in November called Awakening the Woo 2.0.
Oh, I love it. Awakening the Woo.
It's such a magical space to be in.
Yeah.
There was so much of me that was like, who am I to hold this and to do this? But the fact is, it's not me anyway. It's what's coming through within
exactly.
the amazing
good
humans.
Question to ask yourself. Who am I? Not you.
Not the other person. Which is great. And so that's beginning at the end of November. And I also work one-on-one with people. So you can follow me at Realign with Raku, or look for me at Rachelle Luv Raku. And I would love to have you in my energetic vortex and reach out to me, DM me. I'm a human. I love chats, as you can probably tell.
Yes, exactly. And on that note, I just want to add, when someone says reach out to me, DM me, that's a permission slip.
Yeah.
Because Rachelle would have amazing boundaries.
Yeah.
And if she's not a space to receive a message, here's the thing. She won't receive the message.
Yep. That's
So
it.
yeah, beautiful. And Facebook, Instagram,
Facebook, Instagram. Yep.
both on
Both.
the IG.
Yep.
Righto, beautiful.
Yep. Thank
Well,
you so
thank you
much
so
for having me.
much. I've loved having you on today. Thank you so much.
It's been my absolute pleasure. I'm super excited to be able to have a conversation after feeling like I know you already. So it's great.
Me too.
Yeah.
Righto. Hang on.